and if anybody is experiencing this out there that's listening, you have choices, and you are probably a different person now than you were then, and you can overcome these feelings that do feel debilitating by using somatic therapy, using energy work, and self-soothing. So, but just know that you can make different choices, and that's empowering.
This is your Kick-Ass Life podcast, episode number 362 with guest Lara Riggio.
This is the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast with Andrea Owen, a no BS guide to self-help and badassery. Because ladies, let's face it, life's too short for it to not kick ass. And here's your host, the girl who serves it up straight with a side of crazy, Andrea Owen.
Hey there, ass kickers. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. So I am recording this on Monday morning, November 2nd, 2020. And I'm telling you that because for a couple of reasons. This is a historic week over here in the United States. It is election week, and I know that this is going to come out next week. So it's probably going to be very different if we know anything at all. It's a little nerve-wracking. I think for all of us, it has been all year, and anxieties are running high. I wanted to share something with you that doesn't have anything to do with politics. You're probably like, phew, thank goodness. And the other reason I was mentioning what day it is because today, well, actually on the 1st, my manuscript was due to my editor for my third book. And I sent it over a few hours ago. Oh my gosh. All right. So it's one of those things, it's a gigantic project. I've been working on it for many, many, many months. And for all of you, I think that anytime you put your heart and soul into something, whether it's a piece of art, whether it is a work project, whether it is a child, when you are kind of putting it out into the world to be on its own, and especially when you're putting something out there for other people to give their opinion, to critique it, to help you and give their insight to make it better, it's scary. And I actually talk about this in the book about visibility. It's about being extraordinarily vulnerable. And as someone who has diagnosed anxiety disorder, even if you don't struggle with chronic anxiety, there is that worry of putting yourself out there. And I also have the thoughts of, what if she hates it? What if she comes back and says, this isn't at all what I had expected? Can you try again? So I wanted to share with you the steps that I take to combat those thoughts, that thought spiral that we can all tend to go down. All right. So when I found myself falling into that, what happens for me over here is, because I've been doing this work for so long, I recognize it very quickly that it's happening. And that is the goal. That is what I want for all of you. So the goal isn't to never have negative thoughts anymore or worrisome thoughts anymore. I don't know anyone that does that, who doesn't at least sometimes fall into that, anywhere from a little bit of worry to catastrophic thinking. It still happens to me. I recognize that it's happening very quickly. And there's a couple of things that I do. First, and this goes back to cognitive behavioral therapy that I learned from my therapist 2 decades ago, is I think about worst case scenario from a practical standpoint. I tell myself, okay, sure, that's a possibility that she could come back and say, this is a terrible manuscript. This isn't at all what I thought it was going to be. Are you kidding me? You are the worst author I have ever worked with. It's a possibility, right? I'm not going to be like, well, that could never happen because I'm the best writer ever. No, that could happen. What is the probability of that happening? Really? What is the probability of that happening? Those chances are pretty slim, because in this particular situation, I have experience. I've done this a couple of times before. I'm very clear about what it is exactly that they're looking for. I have sent her a few chapters over the last few months, which she has liked, and she has said, yes, you're on the right track. More of that, please. So I talk to myself and talk about the reality of what is happening instead of allowing myself to go deep into the catastrophic thinking. Okay. Then the next step is I think about the other possibilities, because this is reflexive. I'll just start thinking about, okay, well, that probably won't happen, but she could come back with some criticisms. I have gotten manuscripts back that are destroyed. That's a dramatic word. That are marked up with comments in the margins of the Microsoft Word document. Lots and lots and lots of comments. And that very well could happen again. That's a pretty strong possibility because she's an editor. That's what they do. That's what's supposed to happen next. And it doesn't feel fantastic to get your work back and have someone pointing out all the ways that you could have done a better job. All right. All right. So that's fairly likely to happen. That's probable. And so what I do is I tell myself that no matter what happens, this is the whole point. This is what is going to make me a better writer. This is why I do it this way, so that I can give it to someone where that is their job, so they can help me make this a better book, the best book it possibly can be to put into your hands. I tell myself things like, even if there is criticism, that will not kill me. I have never died before from criticism. I have survived 100% of the days where I have been criticized. Does it hurt? Yeah, it does. It hurts my ego. And that's okay. I'm going to be all right on the other end. I'm going to be a better writer on the other end of it. This is what builds resilience. This is what builds courage. This is what builds confidence. 100%. This is how it works. If I sat here and never put any of my work out there, that would be completely out of alignment with my values. That would never be in service to you. I would not be doing what I was put here to do. So these are the things I have to tell myself when I gear up to send over this manuscript of 85,000 words for someone to critique and tell me their opinion on it. I have gotten feedback before where there's no feedback, where it's like, yeah, it's all great. And to be honest with you, I'm a little disappointed. I'm like, no, can you tell me somewhere, or at least tell me, like, what is the part that you love about it? What is the part where you just think it's okay? That's what makes us better at our craft. Whether you're a writer, whether you are a filmmaker, an artist, a crafter, whatever maker you are, all of us are creative. It just looks different. So I just wanted to share that with you real quick before we jump into the conversation today. And I mean, you're going to hear me talking about it ad nauseum for the next almost year. The book comes out August 2021. I'm so excited about it, and I cannot wait for you to have it. It's been burning over the last handful of years, really, from before I wrote How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. So super excited for you to read this book. All right. We have a fantastic guest for you today. She was recommended by my friend Terry Cole. Terry has been a guest a few times on this show, and I knew it was going to be a great conversation. So for those of you that don't know, let me tell you a little bit about Lara Riggio. Lara is an energy intuitive. Her videos, classes, and sessions have helped tens of thousands discover and heal the mind, body, ancestral, and past life blocks which sabotage health and happiness. She is based in New York City and works out of her Central Park Energy Center in Columbus Circle. So without further ado, here is Lara. Lara, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I am just delighted to have you on because our mutual friend, Terry Cole, whom I lovingly call one of my resident therapists over here, she's been a reoccurring guest on the show. I wanted to tell you what it was that we were talking about in conversation that had her say, you need to have my friend Lara come on your show. So I was doing some research for a book that I'm writing, and I was asking her about intuition and how trauma plays a role in that for women. So more specifically, women who have trouble accessing or listening to their intuition, who have unresolved trauma. How, tell me about that, Terry. And so she was talking about it. And then that's when your name came up and she said, she's worked with you and here we are. So are you surprised that was the conversation that we were having when your name came up?
Well, I was like, wow, here we are. Okay. Hi. Welcome to the podcast. Let's talk about trauma. I love it.
You're right.
I love it.
I jump in the deep end.
But honestly,
welcome.
Honestly, so what happens often in my client sessions is someone will come in, and this happens frequently. Someone will come in and they may break into tears, because I really do try and create a safe space where people can really be themselves and express what they need to, right? Because we don't give ourselves enough time and space in our lives to do that. And so someone may burst into tears, and I'm like, this is great. And they look at me like I have 5 holes in my head, because I'm like, it's great because you want to work on this, and it's already here. You're already present to it. So now we have a wonderful place to start from versus having to dig to get to it. And I think, well, do you want to jump into trauma? Is that where we want to go?
100%. Yeah. It sounds like that's kind of the entry point. That's why you say it's already here.
Yeah. It's already here because I always say that upset is access. And when we're upset about something, it's our body's way of telling us that something is not right and it wants to resolve it. And I really think of our bodies as really incredible teachers. Pain is a teacher. Anxiety is a teacher. Depression is a teacher. Insomnia is a teacher. When my clients come with insomnia, I often look at, well, what's up with their central nervous system that it can't calm down so that you can actually rest and relax? Or do we need to look, is there a traumatic experience somewhere in their history that has somehow been, that's triggered this stress reaction? Are they just overwhelmed all day because they're taking on too much? But we look at what can be healed, and what's causing the insomnia, and it allows us to ultimately reach a new level of growth and make ourselves happier in our lives. So I really try to reframe a lot of the upsetting or negative things that happen to us as they're just signs. They're signs from your body that you're living in a way that's not really aligned with what you want. And in the case of trauma, when something comes up and you're constantly thinking about it, or you find you're reacting to a trigger the same way all the time, and it could be debilitating or just even annoying, when that happens, that you're ready to heal it. You're ready to go and actually talk about it. But I will say with trauma, the important thing about trauma is that trauma is held in the body. I talk about the body as a teacher, but the body is also, it's a holder of memories as well. And you hold them in your musculature. And one of the reasons that energy work, which is what I practice, is so helpful with trauma is that it helps you balance it helps you actually balance your energy body in the face of like talking about the trauma or reimagining it so that then you can desensitize your body to the situation. And so it is every meridian in your body has a physical capability and an emotional capacity as well. And so when we're able to work with the meridian system or the chakra system and rebalance it in the face of the retelling of the story or the thinking about the situation, we're strengthening your body's response to it, and you're able to retrain your reaction to it and ultimately be free from that physical habituated reaction. And that's how I work with trauma. And again, though, when you're having symptoms, I always look at it as an opportunity. And I think that's super important with any kind of injury, pain, discomfort, anxiety, whatever it is.
So I'm assuming that takes like 1 or 2 sessions and then you wrap it up.
Well, Actually, I have helped people, but what's interesting is if it's ripe for change, and it's funny because when Terry sends me clients, because she's worked with people and uncovered and actually educated them, they've worked through the past experiences enough, and she's helped them re-educate themselves, and get present to their own power. When they come in, it may only take one session for me to reprogram the body's reaction to it. So the more work you've done, the faster you can reprogram those reactions. Sometimes there's layers though too. When I've worked over the years with a veteran. He's a former Marine, and actually the first thing that we worked on, I worked with him over a period of 2 days for like long extended sessions. And in those sessions, we worked on the retelling of the story and strengthening his body in the face of it. But then we went outside of my studio and looked at how his body was being triggered. And we worked with those triggers as they were happening over a 2-day period, using my exercises, and also along with talk therapy, because he had a great team of which I was a part. He was able to reprogram his PTSD symptoms and ultimately overcome the symptoms of PTSD within months, versus, years or a lifetime, right? So it just depends on the situation. It also depends on how frequently a person was in the traumatic situation. The other thing that I also find is a little more difficult and takes just longer to heal is when the traumatic situation, when it has happened over a longer period of time, and if there was any kind of emotional or psychological abuse associated with it, it's a little bit harder to reprogram, because we're not only dealing with whatever the stressful event was, but the lead up to it and after it, if it was a trauma that was experienced over a long period of time. So, but these things, I see traumatic experiences, literally being healed. Sometimes on a daily basis in my work, weekly, these are things that can be healed. So anyone out there that's had a trauma, that has experienced trauma, there is hope, and energy work is a wonderful way to help you heal from it.
It sounds like, and tell me if I'm right by understanding this, that it's helpful for people who, or maybe you see people who have spent a decent amount of time in talk therapy, or they've done cognitive behavioral therapy, and that has helped to up to a certain point. But like you said, trauma lives in your body, and then they come to work with someone like you who can actually help them rebalance. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I think that it is a beautiful marriage of talk therapy and energy work that probably gets the best results.
Well, and I think we've come a long way over the last even just handful of decades. I think just talking about therapy and what it actually looks like behind closed doors. And I think for a long time that talk therapy was one of our only options, or at least the only option that people talked about. I know my therapist, you go and talk to this person and you just talk about your problems and you talk about your feelings. And I'm so glad that now other modalities are more mainstream and it's not considered weird or woo-woo. I'm sure by some people who judge it, but to do things like energy work and that type of healing, what do you think?
Well, I've been doing this now for 15 years, and it was considered more woo-woo, 10 years ago, and now that people have experienced meditation and the tapping solution and yoga. I mean, if you think about it, 10 years ago, yoga was weird, and now everyone's doing yoga. People are meditating and it's mainstream. So we have come a long way, and it's wonderful, because I do feel as though, especially with trauma, moving these emotions through the body is key. I often find that if someone's in therapy and they talk about something, a lot of my clients have felt re-triggered when they talk about something, but then they're not able to move the energy or reprogram the energy and the physical response to it. So the marriage of the modalities is just absolutely incredible. So it is very cool the way that our society has shifted and is more accepting of all these things.
Yeah, it is. Well, Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea.
Let's back up for a second. And can you tell us what it might look like for someone, like say someone's listening to this and maybe they don't have a regular talk therapist right now. How can so what are some telltale signs that they can look for in their everyday life that might point them towards maybe some physical symptoms to where they might need to seek out a trauma therapist?
Well, trauma is a little different than just stress, but trauma, for example, one of the biggest things I see with trauma is disassociation. People being unable to be fully present in different situations in their life. And if you feel as though you are all of a sudden, you can't quite focus on what's being said in the room. It's like you're there, but you're not there. You may be disassociating. So that is a more, I guess, extreme reaction, but other reactions could be insomnia, just like anxiety that can't be addressed with just, actions or trying to change your thoughts or, doing something different. I think reactivity, like if you are walking outside and something, you have something happens and then you feel a level of stress in you that you can't calm down from, that's another symptom. And so really just and I think this is something that all of us should really do, is pay attention to how you feel and check in with yourself throughout your day and just maybe put your hand on your heart and say, what am I feeling in this moment right here and right now? And a lot of us, I think, are stressed and we don't even know we're stressed, whether we've experienced trauma or not. I find my clients can come into my office, and these are people that maybe are not trauma survivors, and they'll come in and their central nervous system will just be completely overstimulated to the point where it's just hard for them to relax on the table. And we have to calm the central nervous system before we can even begin to work on whatever it is they want to come in to work on. And so just being able to stop and take time to understand what you're feeling, and also changing our relationship to stress. So, I'm feeling stressed, rather than just ignoring stress. How can it teach us something? So if I'm feeling stressed, what I do is I do a series of, tapping that stimulates the meridian system and helps me digest whatever emotion I'm feeling. And then I ask myself, well, what is it that I want right now that I'm not giving myself, or I don't feel like I can have? And then I can take action to make myself feel happier. But before I can go there, I have got to calm my anxiety or got to calm my worry. Otherwise, I can't even get to what I want. And I think that a lot of us live in that state all the time and don't even know it. And so the more we can allow upsetting emotions, stressful emotions to teach us what we need versus just pushing them down and, we think we're keeping calm and carrying on, right? But we're really not. We're just pushing our emotions down. And when you do that for a long period of time, that's when ultimately those emotions affect us physically in a chronic way. We may have chronic neck pain. We may have chronic back pain. We may, develop chronic insomnia, which affects our health in other ways. So these are the kinds of symptoms, physical symptoms, that can also show up in a regular person who hasn't experienced trauma, but also in people with trauma. You can have physical symptoms that you can't seem to shake and you don't know why. And it can all be stress related.
Oh, okay. I have so many questions, but one of the things I wanted to add when you were talking about what are some things for people to look for when they're, maybe they have some work that they need to do. I know for me, when I would see certain scenes in movies or TV shows, which still happens sometimes, and it is a reminder of how, like, a traumatic event that I had, or the life that I used to have, some relationships I used to have, when it's in my face being played out in front of me and I have a physical reaction. And that's a key to me that trauma is still living in my body. I also had another experience earlier on when I had 2 back-to-back traumatic relationships, and one of those resulted in a wonderful child, my 13-year-old son. When he was a baby, before I got pregnant with him, I worked at this one particular office building. I loved the job, loved the people that I worked with. And unfortunately, when I worked there for about a year. I was in a very difficult, toxic, abusive relationship. And that relationship didn't end up working out. And I had my baby, and a friend of mine that worked there, I didn't work there anymore. A friend of mine said, come and have lunch. We want to see the new baby. I didn't think anything of it. I put my happy ass in the car and drove down there with my son, and I had him on my hip, and I'm walking into the building, and I walked by the bathroom, the same bathroom that I used to go into and cry pretty much daily. And I had a physical reaction and felt like I was frozen and was so ridden with anxiety that I asked my friend if we could leave the building. And that was the first time actually that I realized the impact of what I had been through, because I chalked it up to, it was just a really ugly breakup, and you just move on. Some talk therapy will help me and I'll be okay. And for me, it was validation that yes, trauma lives in your body. It is very real, and it requires deep healing and surrendering to what is.
Absolutely. And the kind of work I do with my clients, and this is exactly the work that I did with the veteran that I was talking about earlier, is if I was with you in that office building, I may have said to you, okay, let's go out for a minute. And I would have said, let's tap together on how you feel right now. And I would have said, and I would have tapped meridian points with you. And had you just be present to the feeling that you were feeling. And then when we got your anxiety from maybe a 10 down to a 1, I said, okay, let's try and go in. And then we would go in and we would tap again. And what we'd be teaching your body is that what is happening now is not, what was then is not now. And we are teaching you that you can keep yourself safe and be more at choice now that you are the person you are today, so that what happened then doesn't have to happen again. So it's really important when you are triggered to calm down first, in whatever way you can. Like I said,
We just went and had chicken parmesan at the deli.
That just gives you a little,
probably not that helpful.
well, I mean, on it, but you know what? If that's a
and she was a great friend.
You were nurturing. And she's a soothing friend. You know, that could be a nurturing thing to do for yourself. It's so funny. Lady Gaga has an amazing interview that she did recently with Oprah Winfrey, and she talks about, you know, her experiences with trauma, her trauma experience, and also, you know, what she uses to help herself feel better. And when she is triggered by something, or when she is upset, and she talks about giving herself something that really is nourishing, and that this just helps her feel better. And I think that, you know, good friends can do that. Knowing actually in your life what does that for you is really important. And I really also challenge people. Little simple things can be so nourishing and soothing. I mean, I just absolutely love my almond milk cappuccino in the morning, and I find it super soothing to sit and just drink that warm, cozy drink. You know, putting on your favorite pair of PJs sometimes, you know, and watching your favorite show can be incredibly soothing. So doing something that soothes you so that you're actually taking care of yourself is another way that you're reprogramming your response to your reaction, because you're letting your body know we're actually okay. Like, we can, after having that experience, I can go to lunch and feel the feeling again of feeling soothed and okay. So again, that's actually one form of calming the body energetically. Now, I mean, I have these, you know, again, I talked about the tapping routines that I do with people so that you can, you know, do it in the moment. And that's how we work through and help desensitize the body to the triggers that were associated with the old event, so that the present moment is no longer stressful in a similar situation, because the situation that you're in now is not the same as the one you were in before, even though the location is the same. You're different.
What is happening biologically? Is it really that our bodies think that we are in the same place as before?
So your body, all of your senses remember that experience. And if it's been a traumatic one, it's like your body makes a sensory note. When a lot of those sensory cues are then combined again, if you think about it, when you walk into any room, you immediately smell it while you're seeing everything in the room. And both the visual and even the auditory. Like when you walk into an office building, you know how there's kind of that hum of background
even like
noise?
the way the door sounds when it closes sound, that you probably don't notice, but
absolutely. All of those cues your body remembers, and then to keep you safe, you will go into a sympathetic nervous system response. It's a fight, flight, or freeze response. So you will either potentially get angry and not know why. You may, and that would be the fight reaction. You may get really anxious and nervous and want to run away, get the hell out of there like you did. Or you might get really frozen. And when a client is frozen, I will know they're frozen because their eyes get a little bit wider, and it's almost as if you're a deer in headlights and you can't quite manage to do things as effectively as you would normally because you're in a state of freeze. Your body's remembering all of those all that stimuli, and it's reacting, and it's really doing so to keep you safe. It's a protective mechanism. And what we need to do, and that's why the soothing is really helpful, is we need to tell your body that actually there's no lions or tigers or bears right now. You're safe because even though you're in the same place, you're not in the same situation with the same, confluence of factors. And I keep reiterating, you're different. And I'm going back to your story because, coming back to this old place, you were a different person. You had been to therapy, you had done work on this, you are different. And really, I don't think, would you, at that moment when you revisited that, had you done enough healing to not make the same choice again?
I had done enough to not get into a relationship like that, but I hadn't done any somatic work. And so that was in 2000, and it was late 2007. It might've been early 2008. So I'll bet now if I went back there that I would be really surprised if I had the same physical symptoms.
Right.
I mean, I might have a little bit, but I've done the somatic work now.
Right.
But it took me a minute. It took me over a decade to actually be ready to do it.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes time. And I think that, but one of the things that I keep reiterating, and I want to do this for the listeners out there, is that you, even though you're in a situation that reminds you of the previous one, you are different and you have a whole new level of power of choice that you probably didn't have back then. And there's a meridian in the Chinese meridian system called the triple warmer meridian. And the triple warmer is the meridian that initiates a fight, flight, or freeze sympathetic nervous system response. And what triple warmer needs to hear in order to feel safe is that you're at choice. And, it's only stimulating that response because it thinks that what happened before is going to happen again, right? So we need to protect you from that. But we all have choices and we can make a choice that can help us be safer. And I mean, even in situations where, trauma, like if someone wound up getting jumped and raped on the street, you have even the choice to stand up and fight like hell so that doesn't happen again. We have choices. And so I think that it's just a very empowering thing to know that, and if anybody is experiencing this out there that's listening, you have choices and you are probably a different person now than you were then, and you can overcome these feelings that do feel debilitating by using somatic therapy, using energy work, and self-soothing. So, but just know that you can make different choices, and that's empowering.
So was that triple warmer?
Triple warmer.
What was the name of that?
Triple warmer meridian. It's called triple warmer or triple heater. And I have exercises on my site that take you through how to calm the triple warmer meridian and how to calm a stress response, how to release anxiety. So at larariggio.com, there's tons of information and video exercises so that you can experience this work and calm yourself down.
You do have a lot of stuff on your exercises on your site. We will link to that in the show notes for sure. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. You know when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise.
It is 2020 and a little bit anxious this year with the pandemic and the quarantining and the sickness and the civil unrest and this election cycle. And so, okay, I know this is, I have lots of questions about that. My first one is, how can one work to clear anxiety right now and make decisions with greater clarity? Because I find that that's been hard for people just to make simple decisions that they maybe would not have had a hard time with, 7 months ago.
I think one of the biggest problems right now with the stress that we're feeling is the fear of the unknown. That is what I help people clear on a weekly basis. Clients that I even see regularly that we've worked with clearing this fear several times, it comes up again and again right now because we're experiencing something that we haven't experienced in our lifetime and our parents haven't experienced in theirs. And so we just don't know what's going to happen. But I've been trying to challenge my clients and invite everyone to take this time, because a lot of us have more time on our hands. So take this time, rather than doing things that you would normally do by rote, see if you can tap into your own heart more and see what you want to do, because that's the gift of this moment. There's the availability of more self-reflection and I think just a deeper, closer relationship with your own desires, because we're not rushing off to do this, that, or the other thing. And because we are living in a state of the unknown, we have more choices. And yes, that can stress you out. But if you tap into your heart and you really think about what you want and act on your own desires in any situation, even down to, look, we have to make decisions all the time right now. Like, so-and-so wants to go out to dinner. Well, do I feel safe? And this can actually really help anyone who's experienced trauma. Like, just doing this with your everyday life can help you feel safer and feel empowered by your own choices. If someone asked me if I want to go out to dinner, I'm like, well, where would we go? I may even call the restaurant and say, how far apart are your tables? Or better yet, I walk by. In New York here, we have only outdoor dining that is available. And I'll walk by and say, okay, so how far apart are the tables? Are the waiters wearing masks? Like, I look at it all and I make a decision after I have all the information and by tapping into my heart and going, does this feel safe to me? I did the same thing with the nail salon. Like, I walked by the nail salon. I went in. I saw how many people were there. How many appointments are you taking by the hour? I made sure it felt safe before I put myself into a position where I didn't feel safe. And so really, this time I see as capable of before with our busy lives. And the cost is, of course, very saddening, all the lives lost and all the pain, and hurt that people have experienced from all of this, and from the pandemic to, the lives lost, everyone that's died with, all the police shootings. And this is just not recently, but, like, my goodness, we can go back, many years and talk about all the lives lost that shouldn't have been. But it's giving us the opportunity to change. And when we look at how change is occurring in some ways more rapidly than it ever has before. Laws are being passed that pretty quickly, because of people's reaction and social stance around all of these events. So I actually see this, while there's been a lot of pain and upset, I do see the upside of it and see how the world is changing for the better as a result. And, you know, I believe that the energy that we feel often attracts like energy. And so when I look into the future, and I just had a client today who was really worried about the election and, you know, what might happen if this one or that one was elected. And I said to her, I said, well, you know, we were talking about who she wanted to you know, wanted to be elected, and how would you feel if that happened? And I said, this is the feeling we want to manifest, because when you are able to think about how things could be and how you would feel, you're able to attract more and more like energy to that. And I just say, whenever we're dealing with our reaction to the media right now as well, again, notice if you've watched something that is upsetting to you, you're probably engaged in with the energy of it, and notice how you feel. Maybe don't watch that show anymore if it's pulling you into an emotional state you don't want to be in. Get your news another way. If you can just, again, get into the feeling of how you'd want to feel if the outcome you desire occurs, you are going to be putting energy and intention into that manifesting versus the opposite. And I think that right now, I had another client today who's a mom, and she's actually keeping her kids home from school and doing virtual learning online. And the way that it was all going was not smooth, and she wasn't sure how effective it was going to be. Was she going to have to, you know, go back to homeschooling, and what would that mean? And she was in a total state of upset about it. And when I checked into her system and started testing, I saw that the triple warmer meridian was overstimulated. So there was a level of like unsafety there. So I said, well, what is it about this situation right now that is causing you so much stress? So like there's a lack of safety. Are you afraid that your kids, if you start to homeschool them because this isn't working, are you afraid that maybe they won't be able to go back in January or next year and have a seamless transition? So that's exactly what it is. Like, well, is that you could probably get them tutoring or make sure they're up to date, right? She said, yes, I could. Okay, great. And there are other ways you could facilitate them still having, you know, having their friendships with their friends, right? Yes, I could. Okay, great. So you really could facilitate an easy transition back. So this is a perceived fear. It's not a real fear. So, you know, again, looking at what do you really want? I want to make sure my kids can go back. I'm thinking I want to homeschool them, but I want to make sure that they can go back and transition back easily. Okay, so then how do you do that? And that's the thing. It's like, what is your anxiety trying to tell you? I'm uneasy about doing this virtual learning. I think I really want to do the homeschooling, and, you know, but is there going to be a cost there? You know, and are my kids not going to get what they need? Well, how could you facilitate both? Having what you want with homeschool, and then also facilitating them having what they need. You could probably do both. But literally talking yourself through those steps after you recognize the feeling, the anxious feeling, calm yourself down, and then again, tap into your heart and understand what it is you really want.
I love that you get to the bottom of it first. And it sounds like you use a lot of intuition in your work. Is that true?
I do, but yes, I use intuition, but I'm also, I'm testing, whenever I'm working with a client, I'm testing what their energy field is telling me and how they're out of balance. So when I see, like, for example, the triple warmer meridian is overstimulated, I know someone's really afraid and they're feeling unsafe. When I see that other meridians, like, for example, if the spleen meridian is out of balance, I know that they may be having trouble just digesting a lot of information at one time and assimilating it in an easy way, or they're not having enough compassion for themselves. If their kidney meridian's out of balance, I know they're probably blaming or shaming themselves in some way. Liver brings up self-criticism. So I have insight via which meridians are out of balance and which chakras as to what is actually happening emotionally for them. So it's not so much, it's part of its intuition from doing this for so long, but part of it is also what their body's really telling me. Their body's talking to me and telling me exactly what has them upset.
That is like That is some wild, amazing, fascinating shit to me. Like,
It actually,
I saw a chiropractor who did that. And I mean, are you I'm like, are you guys magic? Are you from another dimension? It's so fascinating. He went through my organs and he didn't even put hands on me.
yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how you do it, but I think it was gallbladder. He said, I can't remember which organ it was. And he said, who are you resenting right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, at first I was like, ew, like get out of my head. And it was my mom.
Yep.
Like we had just moved to Utah when she lived there, and we had all this misunderstanding and assumptions about childcare, and it was coming to a head at the moment. And we had gotten into this argument, and I was resentful that she wasn't babysitting my kids, and she never said she would. And I had made all these assumptions. And so, but that blew my mind. I was almost afraid to go back, because I'm like, how are you reading my organs?
Well,
Get out of my body.
So your body is out of balance, and he read where the stress was, and that's what I do too. And the beautiful thing about it, it is crazy cool, and I use it all the time on myself. Every day I test myself to see if there's a clearing that I need, to see what might be bothering me. And, I got into doing this work because I had chronic fatigue and I was tired all the time.
Okay, that was my next question. I was curious about is how did you get into this?
I got into this because I had chronic fatigue. I was tired all the time and, drinking 4 grande, cappuccinos a day to just get through my life. And then when my adrenals started to break down, from just the all of the caffeine and everything, I really had a problem. And a friend of mine turned me on to energy medicine. So my teacher is Donna Eden, and she has a book out called Energy Medicine. And I found a practitioner in New York and started going once a week. And it made sense to me because, again, it was based on what you're talking about, muscle testing. And with muscle testing, we will ask the body questions. So I will ask the body a yes or no question, or I will touch specific points. And that's how I know where the body's weak and where the body's strong. And what's very cool is that when you feel your arm weak because your practitioner has found a weakness for you, or weak meridian or whatever chakra, and then you do an exercise and then you see that your arm is strong afterwards and you actually feel different. That's a beautiful thing about this, is that the results of this work are immediate. After my first session with her, I went to her feeling like I was walking through mud because the fatigue was so oppressive that it felt like I was not just like walking through air, but mud. That's how everything had to work harder in my body just to move forward. And after the session, I felt this lightness of being that I had not felt for years. I kept going, and I wound up doing, and did I do the exercises that she gave me every day? I still didn't do them every day. And so it wasn't until I committed to doing the exercises that she gave me every day that then I found this huge, fast progression. And within like a few weeks after that, I actually bounded up all 4 flights of stairs to her home studio, when I had to previously walk up one and rest, walk up another flight and rest, after I started doing my exercises every day. And so it was then that I was like, my gosh, I'm actually healed. Like, I can do things I couldn't do before physically from doing this work. And so I committed to doing it every day. After I healed the physical effects of my fatigue, I wound up dealing with the emotional ones, which were chronic anxiety. It takes a lot of energy to be chronically anxious. And I had adopted anxiety from my mom and adopted her belief system, which drove anxiety. And so I started working on that next. And that's how I've gotten into working with all the emotional aspects that I cover with my clients, is because one morning I woke up and I was completely procrastinating and getting more and more anxious as I was. And, 2 hours had passed and I was just beside myself with anxiety because my to-do list was like 20 points long and I had to get all this stuff done. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do the exercise where I go in bed and I hold my forehead in the back of my head for just 15 minutes because that usually helps me get to sleep. So I did it in the middle of my day, and then I started knocking all these things off my list. And I I calmed my stress response. And so when I saw that that was possible, that I could calm anxiety, I was like, wow, I could do this with any emotion, right? So I started working on all the emotions that I was having that were upsetting, and learning all these techniques that they call it energy psychology. There's different forms of energy psychology that you can learn, and they help your body digest stress. And like we said, the really cool thing is you can think about, for example, one of the next things that I tackled was, well, why do I have this distrust of men? I found that I was a person who just couldn't flirt. So I would, see a good looking guy, and I would look at him, and automatically, involuntarily, I would turn my head away, and I would get completely red in the face. And so having any kind of conversation with someone I was attracted to was really tough, because I just physically was prevented from doing it. And after working on this fear and finding that it was coming from a distrust of men, but really a distrust of myself, because when, and that's funny, when I told my mom, this actually really illustrates how beliefs from your childhood are passed on, and they can affect your life today. When I told my mom about what I was working on energetically, she said to me, oh, well, do you remember when you were a kid? When you were 5 years old, I asked you if you were going to get married, and you said, oh, yes, I'm going to get married, but I'm always going to have my own money. At 5, I said this to my mother. And
Wow.
yeah, because I saw my mom in a relationship where she was unhappy and she felt trapped. Now, after that, she went to therapy. She and my dad went to therapy. They got healthy. My mom went back to work. She felt empowered and, was enjoying her life. And I still had this belief. So even though they changed and they got healthier, I held on to this belief that it's not so healthy to be in a committed married relationship if you don't have money, because then you're trapped. And so with that belief, I wound up attracting non-available guy after non-available, non-committal guy after guy. And, relationships didn't feel safe to me. So after I was able to clear that, I was able to meet men everywhere. I met them on the bus, I met them on the street, and I wound up, having a real dry spell turn into, a dating frenzy.
Raining men.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And then I met my husband within a year and a half of that. So, and then we were married, we moved in a year later. And so it really opened up my ability to be in a healthy relationship, clearing that fear. And like I said, it was this physical reaction to flirting that cleared for me. So again, it illustrates that this stuff, these beliefs are held in the body. Sometimes you don't know they're there. And the cool thing about these kinds of practices are that you're able to figure out exactly what it is that is bothering you, what the stress is, identify it, and then release your body's reaction to it, balance your body in the face of this stress so that you ultimately overcome that stressor.
Mm-hmm. Which goes back to what you were talking about earlier, and that's paying attention to your body and your reactions.
Yep. And then soothing yourself.
Come full circle.
Soothing yourself. So, really take the time. If you're feeling stressed, how can I soothe myself? And like I said, there's a ton of resources on my site and that you can certainly go and use. But, even as simple as I'm feeling stressed, maybe I need to take 15 minutes and just go sit on a park bench and breathe. Or even like if you're in your car and you find that you're anxious while you're driving, like when you get to the parking lot, sit there and maybe you just take 10 deep breaths and rubbing your temples. So if you take deep breaths and you just rub your temples in a circular fashion, that can calm your fight, flight, freeze reaction. The triple warmer meridian runs from your ring finger up the back of your arm over your ear to your temple. And so if you rub your temples as you breathe deeply, you're telling your body there's no lions, tigers, or bears. You are safe right here and right now. And then you ask yourself, what can I give myself to soothe myself and give myself the energy and attention that I need in order to feel safe to take action on what you want, versus just being in that state of reactivity and never, ever calming yourself down. That's why we have insomnia.
Which isn't sustainable
No,
long term.
it affects your physical health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's, some people listening who have experienced that or are experiencing it now, especially, since things have kind of come to a head here in 2020.
Right.
And I hope that people can take care of themselves and take some exercises that they learned here or on your site, larariggio.com. We'll drop that in the show notes. Is there any other place that you like to hang out, like on social media, where people can come and find you and learn more?
Sure. My Instagram name is Lara_Riggio. So you can find me on Instagram. I have tons of exercises on my YouTube channel, Lara Riggio. You can just find it by typing in my name. And so there are ways to find me.
I have loved this conversation. I was telling somebody else that I was interviewing that I truly believe that as a host of this show and someone who both is a facilitator of personal development work and a student myself, that as I kind of go through my own stuff, that the universe hands me people that both I need to hear so that I can serve my people better. And talking about energy work and trauma and everything that you've talked about has been so incredibly helpful. So I so appreciate the work that you do in the world, and that Terry demanded that I have you on my show.
I love it. Well,
thank you for taking the time.
I love your show, and I love that using even the language to describe it. Kick ass. I love it. We should all be kicking ass in our lives. So.
Yeah. Well, and it looks different for everyone, and it's interesting how much it's evolved. When I started in 2010, I started a few years before that, but when I officially launched Your Kick-Ass Life, it really was about positivity and going after your goals and just, kind of like hustle, and you can do it. And then I quickly realized there's so much more to it. And so what I tell people now is your version of a kick-ass life may not look like mine, and whatever it is that you need to take care of yourself and honor your values and just be the best that you can be. And so that is a wide spectrum. And my hope is that I can bring people on this show to show so many different modalities of how to heal and thrive.
That is amazing. Well, so important. And it's just such a pleasure talking to you. What a fun conversation.
Likewise. And everyone listening, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Your time is incredibly valuable. I understand that. Thank you for joining me and my guest today. And until next time, everyone, I will see you all out in cyberspace. Bye-bye.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.